From ABC News Radio, KMET 1490 in Southern California. This is BizNinja Entrepreneur Radio with your host, Tyler Jorgensen.
All right, welcome out to BizNinja Entrepreneur Radio. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Dan Henry, the author of Digital Millionaire Secrets and one of the most famous guys to ever launch a webinar. We're going to talk a little bit about his story of going from pizza delivery guy to nightclub owner to Florida mogul of all things business, and funnel hacking live speaker and bunny ear rabbit wearing superstar. So Dan, welcome out to the show.
Hey man, how you doing?
So good. These are crazy times, but guys like you and I have been through a lot of things in business. And so let's go through your entrepreneurial journey. And because I think a lot of people think that you're an overnight success. And even though you've worked really hard to get there, I really want people to hear your backstory a little bit and how you got there. So I always I like starting with this question. When was the moment that you knew that you weren't just a 9-to-5 employee type of guy and that you had entrepreneur blood in you?
That's a good question. Well, I always say it took me 7 years to become an overnight success. But I would probably say the moment that I was working in Chicago at Pizza Hut, and it was actually a suburb of Chicago, Lombard. And I'm driving to this building. It's like 6 feet of snow. It's incredibly cold. And I'm going to the end of our delivery zone. And I get to this building. And of course, there's no elevator. So I have to walk up 8 flights of stairs to this guy's home to deliver him his pizza. And, I get there and I give him his pizza and he completely stiffs me, right? Not even $1. Totally stiffs me. And I'm on my way back to Pizza Hut, thinking like, God, this is my entire life revolves around me betting on the generosity of others just to make my paycheck to pay my rent. And so I'm like, there's got to be a better way, And I just started researching and I started looking up stuff online about how, this 18-year-old kid made $1 million with a website selling business chairs, and this other guy makes money. Well, he made $1 million selling a website where he sold a pixel for $1, and just all this weird stuff. You remember that?
I totally remember that one. That was brilliant.
Yeah, all of this just crazy stuff, and I just slowly started researching it and coming into the world of entrepreneurship and. I couldn't quite figure out the online thing for a long time. And it was a different landscape then. And so I'm trying to think what my very first business was. I'm pretty sure if I go way back in the archives, and this is a weird one, my very first business was I bought a bunch of airbrush equipment and I did airbrush tattoos. And I started doing them at like birthday parties. And then I bought a festival, where you go to a festival and you have a tent. Yeah. I did that. I had a cotton candy station and I had a popcorn and I sold that stuff. I did all kinds of entrepreneurial stuff. I've owned 2 bars. I've had I had like an SEO agency and a Facebook ad agency. And I've just had like the full gamut. There's businesses that I've owned probably in my life that I forgot about.
For sure. Yeah.
But that was probably the moment, getting stiff in that year it was -16, -52 with wind chill. And I got stiffed. And by the way, just so you guys know, if you stiff your delivery drivers, there's a long drive between the pizza place and your apartment, and we remember who you are. No, I'm just kidding.
Kidding, not kidding. Sorry, not sorry. Yeah. So I think this happens a lot where people, especially people who don't have kind of that entrepreneurial blood, but they want to get it. There's this, I think it almost makes them feel better to think that guys like Dan Henry, it just fell in their lap, and it didn't take 100 different iterations of spraying airbrush tattoos on 7-year-olds on Saturday to like make a buck, right? That it just, no, he got lucky. He got his first webinar it was just good timing, right? They don't, it makes them feel better to think that Dan didn't put the work in, right? But holy crap, you have grinded and cycled and tested and figured things out. So when you finally got the framework and the opportunity, you had all those pieces to work with. I remember when you kind of first entered the market in the ClickFunnels world, and I'll tell you, I'm a non-confrontational, like super chill guy, and you came in very you have an abrasive personality that I absolutely love. Like I say that in the warmest, most positive way, because you have to be polarizing to get attention, and you do it unapologetically. And for a guy like me, I don't understand it, but I think it's fascinating. And so how much of that is just who you are, and how much of that is what you've embraced, knowing that you have to be a little bit loud to make things work?
Well, so that's a funny question, because a lot of that really is me. But I suppressed it for a long time in the beginning because I thought that people wouldn't dig it. And then when I let go of that suppression, everybody started paying attention. And then what's funny is when you start to get real big, then it works back against you again, and you have to like calm down a little bit. It's so weird how it works.
Sure.
But yeah, cause I've just had a very direct line of sight with my goals, and I feel like as a society, we keep moving into this sort of, hey, everything's okay, be happy with the way things are, be content, love yourself. And, I remember I was overweight at one point, and I lived in Chicago. And if you've ever lived in Chicago, you know that the food is amazing, and it's very easy to get really overweight really fast. And I hung out with this guy that I met, and he was a former Mr. Illinois. He was a former Mr. Illinois. He was like 6 times former Mr. Illinois. And I remember that, I was really struggling with the fact that I was overweight. And somebody said to me, they said, hey, you should really learn to love yourself. And I was like, okay. And then I remember I mentioned it to this guy who was a former Illinois, Mr. Illinois, and he leans over his ginormous shoulders. You could barely see his face over his shoulders. And he goes, and he has this real gruff voice. He's like in his 50s, and he's like jacked, and he's like, son, if you really love yourself, you'll get your ass in the gym, And it made so much sense to me that if you love yourself, you'll do the things that make your life better. You won't just come up with some, fake contentment, And so right. I did, and I lost a bunch of weight. I got in shape. And then I started thinking to myself, working a 9-to-5 is not okay. I'm not okay with that, because a lot of people, they'll say, well, money isn't everything. But at the same time, the things you can do with money are everything. Right. I want to spend time with my family. I want to create memories. I want to go on a vacation. If something goes wrong, I want to have the money to be okay. Clearly, as we can see right now, and so it may sound good. It may sound PC to say money isn't everything, love yourself. But at the end of the day, if you lose your home, now it's real. If you have a heart attack, now it's real. And no amount of social reprogramming or whatever is going to stop your heart from stopping. It's going to stop your mortgage company from taking your house away. It doesn't matter how good, what trendy thing it is currently to believe. It doesn't matter. They're going to take your house away. You're going to have a heart attack. Like, you have to fix this stuff. And so I got to the point where I just got fed up with watching what I said. And I said, listen, you guys all know that what you're saying is BS. You're just saying it to sound trendy and to sound, this is the real, you need to make money. You need to build a business. You need to secure your future. You need to be able to take care of your family. You need to be able to create memories. These are the things that we live for in the American dream. And that's the thing is people will say to your whole life, when you're a kid and you're growing up, they'll say, you can be whatever you want. You can do whatever you want to do. This is the American dream. The American dream is to start a business, make a bunch of money, and live happy and free. That's the American dream. But then as soon as you do it, then everybody hates you for actually doing it, you know? And they're like, you know, this rich guy. It's like, wait a minute. You just told me my whole life as a kid that could do whatever I wanted. I could become a millionaire if I wanted. It's the land of opportunity. I go and do it. And now I'm the bad guy, you know? So it's just crazy. And I think when you cut through all that noise and you worry about you and you worry about what you need to do and what you believe and what's in your heart, people will see that even if they don't agree with it. And that should be your message. And that is my message is, listen, you know, cut through all the BS. We got to get things done. We got to make it happen. Let's just do it.
I think that when you do those things, you put a spotlight on the things that they've ignored. And I think that creates discomfort for them. And that's why you get pushback. It's not about you. It's about them, right? In general. I remember one specific one when you were just getting started with Facebook ads for entrepreneurs and you were just building early momentum. And I remember somebody came in, you were teaching about how to run Facebook ads for local businesses. And this one guru came in and was like, hey, you've got to like make sure you're optimizing that landing page or conversion rate or whatever. And you're like, a local chiropractor doesn't care if you're getting him 3 or 3.2% conversion rate. He just wants to have leads coming in the door so that he can adjust people's back and go back to work. Like, and it was just such a fantastic thing because it's sometimes people in their specialty want to focus on their specialty, but they need to focus on the business they're serving and like what actually matters there. And I've really thought about that. That was like 4 years ago almost. It was before FHL Dallas. And it's been just a really smart thing because to me, you said you have a direct line of sight on your goals, right? I think that's important when you're working in any business because it's real easy to run down rabbit holes of little things that are important, but don't really matter, right? Like, an improvement.
They don't move the needle. They don't move. You can geek out or you can get things done. And most
that's awesome.
In internet marketing, they just sit there and they geek out. They don't look at the big picture. They don't look at the end result. They're just like, oh my Lord, we have this conversion rate on this landing. And you want to hear something funny about landing page conversion rate is that everybody's doing it wrong. They just look at the conversion rate of their landing page. Well, that doesn't tell you your conversion rate. What tells you your conversion rate is if you look at each individual ad and you divide the amount of leads by the amount of outbound clicks. That gives you your true conversion rate per ad. Because you got to remember, people are commenting, they're tagging people, they're sharing it, and you have unqualified people randomly checking out your stuff. You have people trying to funnel hack you. You have your staff trying to check on things, and it completely skews your data. And so unless you look at the true data, you don't even, so the people that are geeking out on it, they're not even geeking out on anything real. So I try to know those individual things.
Smart.
But at the same time, I still don't put a lot of focus on them. I focus on the big picture. I mean, trust me, I can geek out with the best of them and put them to shame, but there's no time for it because it's negligible, whether or not you're paying. Put it this way. If you're doing mortgages, right, and your average commission on let's say you do big waterfront mortgages on waterfront homes, and your average mortgage commission is $50,000. Nobody cares if you're getting a $10 lead or a $12 lead. It means nothing. You know what I mean? It's completely irrelevant. When we run ads for our higher ticket programs, whether we pay $50 for a booked call or $100 for a booked call is irrelevant. It's so negligible.
It's the wrong part of the thing to optimize, right?
Right.
If you could either focus on optimizing $50 to $100 or focus on improving closing rates, testing new scripts, right? Because that's where the bigger lever is between the two, right? So I think. So you said took you 7 years to become an overnight success, and then it's been how long has it been since that first webinar where things started really, really producing revenue for you? Has it been over 3 years, over 4 years?
I think so. I'm bad with time. Like I'll be like, remember that time that we went to Mexico and that was 10 years ago, Dan. I thought it was last week. I think it was 3 or maybe 4.
So
maybe
let's
4
say
years.
it's been roughly 10 years from like the start of this grind and figuring everything out. And you've taken everything you've learned in that 10 years and all the gurus that you've connected with and mentors that you've had, and you've put it into the book, Digital Millionaire
Yes.
Secrets. What was your motivation for writing the book? Yes.
My motivation for writing this specific book, because the name of the book is Digital Millionaire Secrets, but it's how I built an 8-figure business selling my knowledge online. And so the purpose of the book is if I were to go back in time and talk to myself, and I could only add a minute, right? And I could hand my previous self a manual on how to get there faster. This would be the manual I would send myself. And as well, the other reason I wrote this book is because we live in a society where it is socially acceptable to spend $70, $80, $90, $100,000 on a college education, get our feet deep in student debt before we even get one of those foot out into the world. Before we even get out into the world, we're in debt. All to wait 4 years to maybe get a $50,000 a year job, but likely we'll end up working at Chili's. And that is not okay. And there are millions of people out there in the world that have the ability, they have knowledge or expertise that can change other people's lives, even in a small way. And if our formal education system will not raise the bar, then by God, we will do it ourselves. And so if you would like to profit from what you know, and you want to do your part, even if it's small, to help change the world, then you need this book.
I've been absolutely loving the book. I read like 80% of it on my flight actually to Florida, funny enough. And was very impressed because I've had over 100 best-selling authors on this show. Tim Ferriss, Neil Patel, tons of like the guys that write the New York Times business books, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them write good books, but most of them are good books. What I thought was interesting about yours is that it was an actual like plan of attack. Hey, here is what to do. It reminded me of the 4-Hour Work Week in that it actually had actionable items, right? Like, hey, here's what you can do, and here's the result you should get. Next step, here's the result you do. Here's the result you can get. And you broke it down. So first of all, just great job. Absolutely phenomenal. And I think that's the difference between writing a book that's like a fluff piece. Like, hey, here's like, it's a book that Dan wrote to say he has a book, versus like, hey, I'm actually going to pour my knowledge into this. And if you buy nothing else from Dan, but you just get his book, you still can make a huge impact in the world, right? It's not just a tripwire product to try to get people up in the funnel, which obviously that's probably part of it as well, but it works on its own, which I think is absolutely great. There's some really big pieces in it, and a lot of things like the whiteboard webinar and different things like that you've done. If you had to distill down and say this one chapter or this one message in the book is what I think people could immediately apply, even in a time of chaos like this, what would that be?
Well, I would say, and maybe you won't like this answer, but
we already established you don't care.
Yeah, I don't care. If you were to ask me that, to be quite honest with you, and it took $12 million in sales for me to truly realize this. Because if you remember the early me, I always used to kind of like, brush aside mindset. I used to be like, mindset, here, just do this, make the funnel convert.
I do remember that.
But, as I grew, I kind of realized that what made that work was my mindset. And I started noticing that, it doesn't matter how much somebody pays me, 99% of questions regarding their business always come back to mindset, always. And it's how you think. And it's, it's not a page, it's not an ad. It's the source, it's what's happening in your brain that's causing you to have the issue. If you fix that, then you don't have the issue. So a lot of people try to spend time fixing issues when they could fix the source, and that issue wouldn't even exist. And so there's this chapter in the book called Developing Mind Control Powers. And there's actually a section in the book, and there's a few chapters in here. And that would be probably the biggest thing that I could recommend to people right now. And if you don't mind, I could read, there's a little like preface to this.
Yeah, heck
it's
yeah.
called The Real Secret of Scale. If you don't mind, it's only a page. I could read it.
Let's do it.
The Real Secret of Scale. This chapter will be the shortest in the book. As we come to the end of this section on scaling your offer, I'd like to let you know that the next section of this book will help you scale far more than the current one. Many things help in scaling your education business. Sure, there are advertising tricks, software, systems, etc. But those things, like the wind, change. What doesn't change is your ability to focus, be productive, and make good decisions, and above all, maintain $1 million mindset. As we all know, superheroes do not exist. There are no mutants with mind control powers. Or are there? Most people fail because they let their mind run away with itself. They get distracted, move from shiny object to shiny object, or make poor decisions. The real villain in any entrepreneur story is their mind. Your ability to control your mind and is the number one thing that will allow you to scale. Some think that mind control powers mean you have the ability to control other people's minds. But I believe it's hard enough to control your own mind. If you can control your own mind, I would consider that a superpower. In the next section of this book, I will teach you the closest thing to mind control powers that can exist in reality. So that would be what I would recommend to read right now.
I love it. I think now especially, so it's fascinating whenever the world goes through a time of chaos, and sometimes the world is just an individual, right? Sometimes we have the entire world collectively, like right this moment. And other times your personal life is just going through an absolute, its own COVID-19. And I think that's the time where we realize how important mindset is, but it doesn't make it less important during other times, right? Like you're really, right, every day you're waking up in the battlefield of entrepreneurship. And so I'm excited that was what you chose. Cause I would say, you and I have only gotten to know each other like better over the last year or so, but we've been in the same community for a while, and I've watched your mindset get better. I've watched how you approach things, even if you're still ballsy and tough and, whatever, and direct, your mindset shifted. And one of the big things I noticed is your desire to go get coaching yourself. Right. Yes. That shifted about 2 years ago is what from my observation. Tell me how important it is for people to get a coach like you, or for you to get a coach from like Sam or something like that.
Well, I have a lot of people that I've hired to help me, especially with very specific things. Like I just jumped into Myron Golden's mastermind because, I've been speaking more. I spoke at FHL, and I wanted to just be on the top of my game and be able to deliver as best I could. So I paid $30,000 to Myron Golden to help me make sure that I'm top notch for speaking, and so I if I need something, if I think something will help me, I pay for it. End of story. Tony Robbins said that if you want to be successful, find somebody that's doing what you want to do, model them, and you will be successful. Well, Dan Henry says, if you really want to be successful fast, find somebody that's doing what you want to do and pay them whatever they want to show you how. I mean, that's the cheat code, man. That's the cheat code. That's it.
Yeah. You can model, or you can just like plug in and matrix download, right?
Well, yeah, because modeling, I got to say, modeling is not as efficient as you think. I remember
there's too many things that are unknown, right? Like you don't know all of the things to model. So you're modeling what you see.
Right. And that's 5%. I'll give you an example. One time I tried this because I experiment a lot. I tried this one thing that failed miserably. I only tried it for a week. It was just an experiment. But that's why I have things that work great, because I experiment. But I tried this one very specific thing, and it didn't work at all. Like, it was terrible. I was like, okay, well, this clearly doesn't work. But that's good because it gave me the data to know what did work. But about 3 weeks later, I see this guy selling a $47 product, claiming to hack my process or funnel for that thing that I tried. And he's like, oh, I broke it all down. I've got it all. And I'm like, first I'm thinking, that didn't even work. Like, it was terrible. So there's no point for you to hack it because it didn't work. But I was curious. So I buy it for $47 and I check it out. not only is he charging people for his assessment of how I did what I did, that he doesn't even know didn't work at all, but he got it all wrong. Like I was looking at, oh, Dan does this because of this and Dan does that. And I'm just laughing my ass off because I'm just like, this is not even remotely accurate. And he's charging money and people are like, oh, thank you so much for this. And just the misinformation out there. And it's all because he could have easily just paid me to show him how. Like, what is so hard about that? You know what I mean? Like I find it funny.
That's funny.
Because
that's a great example.
It's just insane to me. Like, dude, just pay. Just pay. Like,
right.
You want to, like that. People, look at video games, right? People get cheat. There are people that pay to access forums to get cheat codes to their video games, right? The ultimate cheat code is for somebody who's already done what you want to do to just not only tell you how, but help you do it, like help you execute, make sure you're doing it right. That's the ultimate cheat code, period. You know, so
absolutely.
That would be what the realization that I really came to is that right there.
That's huge. So if you are tuning in on the radio, you can go to bizninjaradio.com and we're going to have links for all of Dan's stuff so you can learn way more about him. If you're online, watching this online, I'll have links on all the wherever you're at. So one thing I like to ask, and I've asked this from everyone since I started the show in 2011, you've mentioned it on the show that business isn't just about being able to have a cool office, but it's about having the lifestyle that you really want. What's one major item on your bucket list that world pandemic permitting that you're going to achieve in the next 12 months?
A personal one?
Uh-huh.
Well, I just went to the White House, so that one's off. So let me think of my next one. Man, I don't know. You got to give me a second. I've achieved a lot. I've done a lot of it.
The White House was a good one. I enjoyed.
Yeah, I've done a lot of things that I've always wanted to do. So when you do that, you know, you create new things. All right, here's one thing that I want to do. I've always wanted to buy a large yacht and spend weeks out sailing on the yacht. And I haven't done it yet because I'm really excited about growing my business and I'm busy doing that. And I just haven't got around to buy. Do you have any idea how long it takes to buy a yacht? Like it's so much red tape. But that's something that I considered doing, but I actually decided to wait on that and take my money and put it into more real estate. And, you know, keep my nose down. And then that way, instead of spending a couple weeks on a yacht, I can spend a couple months when I'm a little older. So
smart.
That's definitely one thing.
I think you just gave me like 10 ideas of things we should talk about in regards to that, but we're going to sign off for everyone that's tuning in here on the radio show. Thank you so much for checking out BizNinja Entrepreneur Radio. This has been an interview with Dan Henry, author of Digital Millionaire Secrets. Please check him out. This is a book you must have in your life if you care about growing your business and changing your mindset. Now it is your turn to go out and do something.
Thank you for listening to BizNinja Entrepreneur Radio with Tyler Jorgensen. Please make sure to subscribe so you're first to hear new interviews and episodes. If you found this podcast to be valuable, please share it with a friend. Don't forget to visit our online dojo at bizninja.com to claim your reward for listening to the show.